Hey, welcome, welcome back to Behind Enemy Lines. Like usual, we're usually about 5 minutes late. Right. So thank you very much.
Predictable.
Yeah, we got. So you guys could always set your clock like 7:05. Those of you that watch it. So we got a really interesting show. We got a buddy of mine, Sargis Sangari, who is from Chicago. Super nice guy. He's been on the show only once. He should be on more than that because he's got such an interesting story. So we thought it was very timely to have him on with what's going on in Iran, and especially this trooper was in the ICU a week ago, and he's doing the show. He's going to be doing it without the video because he's laid up right now. So we're grateful to have him. So we're going to show. He's got a lot of pictures. He's got a really like professional picture he wanted me to show, but I love this one. So um, you know, I like. This is a great shot. So he was born in Iran until he was 10 years old. And then he was in the army for 20 years. And some of the things he did was pretty interesting, including like insurgency and stuff. And I'll let him talk a little bit more about that. But that super cool, interesting, and very dangerous. He started around 2014 the Near East Center for Strategic Engagement, and it was to commemorate the those people who died in 9/11. And with his background, his knowledge, his experience, and being born from Iran, I thought it was like perfect timing to get his view on what's going on. What to expect in the future with Iran. You know what does Donald Trump think about what's going on between Netanyahu and Iran, the conflict, the collaboration or lack thereof, and how that worked out for our country and our president. So those are a couple of things we'll talk about. And again, he's not feeling well. We're very, very lucky to have his time. So I told Sargis, you know what? As soon as you want to jump off, just jump off and just tell us you don't feel good and you will jump off. So, Mike, I don't know if you want to say anything before he jumps on.
I think this is, again, I want to thank you for your service and everything that you've done up front, but also I really want to pick your brains what's going on right now. For those of you in our audience that aren't already familiar, one of the other owners here at Ex American News is Inaz Annie Cyrus. She also came from Iran originally. She was sold into slavery by her father at about 13. Eventually, she escaped to Turkey with the help of her grandmother. She waited there for a couple of years because, unfortunately, right about the time she showed up in Turkey was 9/11. So they suspended all immigration and asylum from anybody from the Middle East, especially being from Iran, with a target like that on their back at that point. It took her about 2 years to gain asylum here. She's lived in the U.S. for about 20 years and is a highly involved in the counter jihad movement. So her eyes been glued to everything that's going on over there for the last week or so, 2 weeks now. And one of the things I just saw is we might finally be starting to see an uprising in the street out there, which is something she's been really excited for, pushing for, because at the end of the day, we do eventually want regime change in Iran. We need to remove the Ayatollahs and the Islamic dictatorship that's there. But at the same time, this is not the time to get involved, boots on the ground. We don't need that. So I wanted to get your thoughts on what you've seen over there right now, and how do you assess the current situation in Iran?
Yeah, you know what? Real quick, sorry to interrupt, Mike. Sorry, just a little bit about your background and what you did during the Gulf War. It's just like not a long one, but it's pretty impressive. It's cool. I'm proud to know you. So I'd like you to maybe say a little bit about that, if you could, if you don't mind.
No, much appreciated, guys. And again, my breath's a little bit heavy, but Terry calls, and I'm like, you know what, I got it, bro. I'll be there. I know folks want to hear some things from my perspective. But look, with everything said, I think where we are is somewhat predictable of where we're going to be, but a lot of it had to do with the leverage that President Trump was able to gain. I know he used some choice words today, talk about Israel and Iran because they were basically in a ticky tack war. Now Israelis may not believe that because of its existential threat to them. However, with all that said, from a U.S. perspective, strategic perspective, yeah, the war wasn't going to go any further for positive for anyone, to include Israel. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when I was in the when I was in the emergency room the first time, I went through emergency room 3 times after in surgery on an old airborne jump that I had prior to a deployment to Africa. I ended up tearing up my shoulder. I did surgery 10 years later. Day after my birthday on 5 June, I do the surgery, and then of course I have all the complications with the blood clots, pneumonia, brain bleeds, based on the type of medication they put me on. I had a call from a friend of mine out of DC, and she was checking up on me, and she's like, "Is there anything else?" I'm like, "Yeah, Israel's about to bomb Iran." And she's like, "What are you talking about? How do you know?" Sitting in the hospital, almost on your deathbed. And I said, "I know because the operation that took place in Russia, where the quote unquote Ukrainians took out the strategic assets of the Russians." I said, every single Mossad agent in Iran who was sitting in a similar type of a truck, their behind just got puckered up real quick
I bet.
because right away the jig is up, right? The Iranians, within an hour of that strike, started looking for those type of vehicles around their ADA assets, and of course, for people who know, those type of elements were used. That type of attack was used to take out a lot of the ADA elements at the beginning of the war. And then the other piece was very important. The day before or the day after the attack took place was a resolution that there was a vote on that was going to be held on the Knesset floor for a no confidence vote on the Netanyahu government, mostly on Netanyahu.
Yeah.
And of course, that was going to just spiral everything out of control. I've been in Israel when they've had on the days of the elections, actually in the national TV studios, radio studios for the Israelis. And the parliamentary system that they use is very complicated, for the better term, maybe not the best system.
Yes.
And because of that, a lot of things kind of converge on each other. The other issue I think that Netanyahu ran into, which was very significant, Netanyahu bypassed Obama by going directly to Congress and got what he wanted from the appropriation committees, using his, law stuff, for the better term,
Hmm.
or influence, and also at the same time, using the Jewish lobby here, of course, will advocate for the betterment of Israel and
Yep.
their foreign policy. It's just common sense. And then at the same time, he bypassed Trump won. He bypassed Biden, and I think a lot of people don't know when he tried to do that after the president gave the State of the Union address. President Trump wasn't happy. However, what was to the benefit of President Trump, most of the congressional leaders were afraid of Trump basically saying, you're out. And that
Yeah.
means you're out gone from the next election. Pushed back on him and said, "Why don't you go talk to President Trump on this issue?" So he was kind of stuck in a corner, and I think everything kind of led together in a perfect storm, which became a go time. Now that doesn't mean that this was some kind of whack the dog operation. There were serious considerations that the Iranians were very close to weaponizing their nuclear capability, which of course U.S. intelligence to now at least, whether for influence operation on Americans or whether, which is illegal, but we
Yeah.
do it all the
Should
time,
be.
it seems. But or whether because of the reality of it, understood that it had to be a go. So with that, Israel started taking out all the leadership targets, missile sites for the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. And I was asked by a friend of mine before my second time going to the ER. He said, "What are you saying?" I said, "My recommendation is kill as much of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps leadership as you can out here in the fight, from the general all the way down to the captain level. Leave the main leader, Ayatollah, alive. Just leave him alone. He's not the same guy who was 5 years ago." And then once you get to a point where you can finally have, in this case, what we have today, um, ceasefire, then the folks will start taking to the streets. Now you give them a chance. You know,
Yeah.
if you are a member of a nation, whatever nation that is, and your nation's being bombed, you take to the streets, you're a traitor. Once there's enough dust has settled, it gives an opportunity now for that next step to take place. The problem is, I'm not sure if you have killed enough of the
Hmm.
Iranian Revolution Guard Corps leadership and multi forces to be able to give the Artesh, which is a regular army, to have enough to side with the people. But the only way you're going to have a regime change and the proper way it should be done by the people. But they need to be able to have the army, regular army, side with the people. And if that happens, I think you're going to see a quick change in the region.
Agreed.
And do you think, this change? Obviously, America wants this change, right? What about our European allies? Do they have the courage to, behind closed doors, talk about this change? Do they care? Are they indifferent? What are your thoughts about our so-called allies?
Like their allies and their adversaries. One thing, when we put restrictions on visas for Iranians to come here to study, the first people who jumped in were the Brits. They're like, everybody can come here and study, bring your family members. So literally every officer in the regular army of the Iranian army and their family members have been educated in Britain. Now, tomorrow there's regime change. I was asked years ago what would happen. The Iranian Americans will go back there and be able to establish a government and maybe be allies with the U.S. I said, yeah, they could go back there, but I wouldn't be surprised if within the first few months you'll see attacks against them and
Hmm.
maybe someone being killed or assassinated. And they said, who would do that? I said, whoever that the Brits have probably, educated.
Hmm.
Britain will always fight you over Iran. Other nations will because Iran is critical. I always thought Iran would eventually will be a nuclear power. If not now, it will be in the future, whether it be under the Islamic Republic type of a structure or something similar to it, or under a democratic leadership of a new democratic Iran. But north of Iran is Russia, nuclear power. To the west of Iran, or I should say to the east of Iran, is Pakistan, bordering it, nuclear power. One country moved between Afghanistan and is China on nuclear power. One country removed from Pakistan is India on nuclear power. Eventually, that country is going to be a nuclear power because how it sits geostrategically
Yeah.
and uh, it's just a matter of time. Even the Israelis, before Khomeini showed up on the scene, were working with the Shah to try to allow Iran to be a nuclear capable nation.
Well, it,
It is what it is. We are where we are. And I think Trump's frustration is understood, where he's trying to give an opportunity for this thing to flush out. But because of the age old animosities between the Israelis and the Iranians within that piece of terrain. It became a ticky tack fight at the end and
Yeah.
not a strategic fight that he wanted to get involved in.
do you think? What's your opinion with what happened with the Moab, the bombs, and the three locations that they bombed? Right. What are your thoughts on, realistically, the setback? I know there's going to be political implications that are going to change the progress or lack thereof. But like, did they set back their capabilities? I'm assuming yes, but to what extent do you think they were set back?
Who knows? That's what the assessment's about. But their facilities are gone.
Hmm.
I mean, that means you're never going to have these facilities for you to be able to, create a nuke. Now, look, I would go back 12 years ago. There was a discussion that maybe Iran just went ahead and just took and purchased two old nukes from the which would be a tactical nuke today
Russia.
maybe from the Pakistan government. So who knows? But I'm sure if any of that stuff had happened, maybe there would have been an earlier fight. Um, I'm not. I think we're missing the point. I think there's a there's a U.S. foreign policy that Trump kind of looks at, and the Israelis whose uh, foreign domestic policy is infused together. Look, from the establishment of the state of Israel has been under attack. It came out of the Holocaust established on the day it was declaring statehood. It was being attacked. That has been how they've kind of grown throughout the entire region. United States had never had a foreign policy for the Middle East. We still don't. We pretend
Yeah.
we do. We don't. Okay. Our foreign policy when the Shah was there was very simple. We support the Shah because we push away and we push against the Russians. Well, Shah falls. All we do is take a 15-inch step to the west and we walk into Iraq. And we're like, okay, now we're here. That foreign policy wasn't going to work.
Mhm.
Once where we are today, where we're independent when it comes to oil and energy,
Hmm.
and the only thing that we care about the Middle East, and the only reason I told the Israelis before, we're only allied and interested in you because still we want to have somebody in the east to watch the Suez Canal
Mhm.
because that's a strategic location that we have to have eyes on.
Yeah.
And I was frank with him just 4 years ago to 5 years ago. I said, listen, if the Jewish state existed in Brazil, and the Brazilians were sitting in that piece of strip that sits along what is called today the Holy Land,
Hmm.
and they were unfortunately, and I was blunt with him, burning Jews and Romans in Brazil. U.S. may not give a rat's ass because they care about that footprint.
Mhm.
And I said, now today, U.S. is in a point where it might not be a positive, maybe you don't like it, but they're willing to be able to build a new, you might say, using economic and multi leverage, new allies in the region.
Yeah.
So if tomorrow something happens, guess what? We'll have a new ally, just like we struck a deal with a terrorist who had killed American forces, who had joined Al Qaeda, and we go to Syria. We're like, here, we got to deal with you.
Yeah.
Now we'll work together.
Yeah, and I think that's been another massive mistake is reaching out and forming, trying to uplift the former ISIS member that's now running the Syrian government. Nothing changed. You just put on a cleaner suit. We've already had numerous, not just Christians killed, but also different Muslim sects. There's a Sufi sect over there, and sorry, I'm forgetting the name of it right now. That's been massacred along with a lot of the Christians throughout northern Syria. So this is not an ally, not somebody that's friendly, and not somebody we should be jumping in bed with. But so I think it's a mistake on that part. What are your thoughts there?
Well, look, as I told a friend of mine a few days ago, who was checking up on me. Again, another Israeli friend, and I said, "Look, think about it this way: we get to separate emotions from reality, right?" I said, "Today you are a dual citizen, American and Jewish, and you're here. Let's say tomorrow morning you're a Christian, one of those Christians who believes, oh, we're going to get a red heifer, rabbi is going to bless it,
Yeah,
and then of course they're going to sacrifice a third temple will be set, and then Jesus will show up and tell all the Jews that I'm the Messiah. I mean, and then you wonder why. And I told a friend of mine at the NRB why the Jewish community doesn't reciprocate that back to you because you're basically saying I'm going to use your religion to prove my religion,
yeah,
and my Messiah. And then I said, you could be a Jewish Zionist, who has a different view of the Messiah. In the biblical sense, the Messiah is a peaceful person in the text of the Jews that comes in and then the state is established. Well, right now he's not here, and you already have a state, and states tend to be corrupt. States tend to have issues. They tend to have bureaucracies. And let's say you even believe in this so-called Mahdi concept that 12th
yeah,
Imam will show up. I said, if you're sitting in the United States, you're asleep, you get up one day, you go shower up, use the bathroom, turn on the lights, turn on your coffee pot, turn on the TV, suddenly you see while you were asleep for 6 hours, Jerusalem was hit by a tactical nuke and is gone. And of course, the Israeli, hit whoever did it. In this case, let's say the Iranians, and nuked Iran and Tabriz and all the various cities in that country. I said, what has changed for you when you see that? Of course, he went into the emotional issues that,
Yeah.
the entire my nation's been killed, the Jewish community. I said, but what is it that has changed for you? I said, you're standing there in your bed, in your kitchen, your TV's working, your coffee pot's working, your water was running. Nothing affected you over the 6 hours you were asleep. Now, let's flush that out to the next 10 days after that attack. Probably the nations of the world would have gotten together and responded because you had a nuclear weapon being used in the region. But you're still alive. You're still going to work. You're still going to school. Nothing has affected anything that you do when it goes to grocery shopping and your
Yeah.
security here. I said, you may have a religious issue you got to deal with where if you're a Christian, you'd be like, what happened? Where's Jesus? How come he didn't show up over the last 10 days? Or you might be Israeli and say, well, my concept of the Messiah, where is he? Where is he? When did he come? Or if you're a Mahdi guy, you'll be like, what happened to the 12 prophets? He didn't show up when Iran was
Yeah,
getting
and we're supposed to
bombed.
crawl out of that well.
Yeah. So, but I said, now let's reverse that, right? Let's say you go through the same process when they get up, turn on the TV, and China has taken Taiwan. I said, you probably would be like, yeah, they always said they were going to do it. And you go along about your day. 10 days from that day, guess what happens? TSMC is gone.
Yes.
90% of the chip technology that's supposed to drive you is gone. Your satellites are gone. Your phone capabilities are gone. If there's a cyber war between US and China because of that, your water's not working. Your electricity is not working. You have a lot of major issues that you got to deal with. Your civilization might be gone within a year. I said the
Yeah.
problem is we look at things emotionally. We don't look at it tactically. From a tactical perspective, we took all these assets that were sitting to guard against what was going to happen and possible invasion of Taiwan, and we moved them to the Middle East. Why? Because once Israel got engaged into this fight, they didn't have the capacity to be able to destroy those sites.
Yeah.
And Trump was very simple. Let's destroy the nuclear sites. So now that the nuclear sites are gone, you can't just keep on coming up with another reason. Oh, there's a boogeyman somewhere sitting in some, tower building a nuclear bomb to destroy the state of Israel. I said that's not going to work for American foreign policy. But what affects American foreign policy is that far right Christian Zionist perspective that has influences, or what happens is internal to Israel. Israel has, under the current administration of Netanyahu, a lot of issues they're dealing with. It was under Netanyahu's administration that October 7th took place. It is under his administration that these ballistic missiles are coming over and actually landing and killing, Jewish people inside of Israel. And so, and the other problem that he's dealing with, of course, Gaza, that still hasn't been settled. Nobody knows what the outcome for that area is going to be. And then the problem you run into, and as I've had a discussion with a close friend of mine here, is that look, the problem you run into, you destroyed every single military capability in the region. You are the rising lion, as your operation says. So if
Yeah.
you can destroy all the Gulf nations, Saudi Arabia, Iran, you could assassinate the leaders at any time. The problem becomes you can't come back after that and say, "Woe is me. I'm the guy who everybody's is
Yeah.
against or after." I said that doesn't work as a foreign policy over the next 100 years. So you have to make a change in that foreign policy. If not, it ends up this tic tac BS that takes place where Trump says, "Okay, we have a ceasefire," and then Israel's like, "Let's go kill as many people as we can before we reach the
Yeah.
ceasefire."
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think Trump was
Mike.
very understandably frustrated with that this morning when that video came out of him on the way to the helicopter before he left for the NATO summit. And I get it. He was proud to get a ceasefire in place, and then you have Israel. The ink's not even dry on the paper yet, and they're loading up bombers, making additional runs on Tehran and other areas. And this wasn't like eliminating some key target that was still standing, or, maybe 5 minutes after the deal's signed, before it's gone into effect, before they can make contact with a plane, it dropped one more bomb. It's not an understandable situation that this had intent behind it. And then, yeah, maybe Iran did fire a missile back, or I've heard different stories throughout the day, whether it was one missile or a few. but it didn't hit the target. It was not a proportional response to Israel. Now, hopefully, the ceasefire that is in effect now stays, or if it doesn't, that it's clearly a violation from Iran to throw it out the window. Because I think if Israel does it again, you're going to have a lot of people start turning on them.
So, Sargis, I have two questions for you.
Go ahead.
One is, with all the protests here in Chicago and stuff, right? And people are throwing around, and I see the signs and stuff. And for those people that don't know what a Zionist is, could you explain that? And then the second question I have for you is October 7th. I'm just baffled because the Israeli army, the Israeli intelligence is like the best of the best, supposedly. How does something like that happen without them knowing? So, first describe a Zionist, and then second, what is your opinion on October 7th and the Israelis not knowing that was going to happen?
There's different viewpoints on Zionism. So there's religious Zionisms, there's other type of Zionisms, and I think where the fight is, that's something that I cannot define. That's got to be defined by the individuals in Israel who have different perspectives. There's a lot of folks that are saying that they feel, and this is Israelis, that the state has replaced what their vision of religious Zionism is supposed to
Can you get a little closer to the mic again? You kind of dropped off a little bit. Sorry.
Did I lose you again?
You're good. You're better now. You
Yeah.
got a little bit further from the mic. You're good now.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the key, right? So that's an internal issue. That's an internal issue for the Israelis to kind of deal with, and I think that's where the struggle has always been. Because what happens is some Israelis say the true vision of Zionism is not being followed in Israel because you have a state apparatus now that quote unquote is saying, I'm basically your Messiah. Every Jew is tied to me. And, a lot of Jews say, no, that's not true because you're still a state apparatus. And when you were initially established as a state, really, the support for the state of Israel, it had allies. It had at that time the Brits, but the Brits were interested about, again, having somebody to help them keep control of the Suez Canal in the region. So that's where that fight is. So we'll leave that as is when it comes to the concept, because getting into the religious discussions is not something that's going to be productive for this segment. The other piece you were asking, I'm sorry, I think I lost you.
October 7th. October 7th. It's like, it seems like, many of the people in the world think that the Israeli army and the military and the intelligence is like the best of the best, right? So how does something like that happen on October 7th where they come,
It's asymmetric warfare. Asymmetric warfare is basically the enemy is good at asymmetric warfare. They're planned, they train for it, they're able to do it. And there's a lot of mistakes. If you go back and look at when the reports were coming down, intelligence of what was being shared and how it was basically screwed up. Again, prior to October 7th, everybody had this concept that Israel is untouchable. Well, and this is why Netanyahu doesn't have as much support in Israel as he has maybe abroad, because Israel is like, look, dude, under your, your leadership, we got breached. Israel got breached with all the money that we pour into security, and our citizens were killed in their own beds. Okay, now we're getting bombed, and it's the system is showing that regardless of what type of capabilities you have to counter missile technology, it is not easy to counter a ballistic missile. People don't understand. Ballistic missile basically goes up into space and it's coming down. It doesn't have like a heat signature capability. It uses basically puffs of the air to move back and forth to drop on a specific target. Hitting that thing is difficult. That's why I think Trump is correct for looking at the Golden Dome, because he realizes there's no technology we have that can withstand even something being fired from a satellite at us. By the North Koreans.
Yeah, and I've heard it described as this, that it's like trying to hit a bullet with another bullet, after the first one's been fired. So you have to be, act within a split second, fire out far enough ahead of the round that it's going to intersect, And it's a lot of math involved in doing that, especially when you consider something's coming down from atmosphere, moving at multiple times the speed of sound. And then you're always going to be on the back end of that, having to calculate the correct trajectory and then hope that you can make not necessarily an impact, because I know a lot of these are designed to explode near the warhead, punch enough holes in it that it's not able to steer and make contact with its target. But it's an extremely difficult problem to solve.
Yeah, I mean, look, if Iranians wanted to, they could have put chemical weapons on any of those warheads. They could have hit and killed many more people. But
Yeah.
Israel would probably retaliate with a tactical nuke, and it would have been worse. One thing I think that was very important that people kind of get confused. They're like, well, Trump gave him so much time and effort. And I was asked by friends out of D.C., well, we gave him, Trump gave him so much time. I said, yeah, but nobody believed in Iran and the Iran leadership that you were serious about a new deal. And the reason for that is because when Trump came in, he broke the previous deal, right? So the Iranians are like, well, okay, so Trump comes in, breaks it. He writes a new deal. The next executive, if he's a Democrat, comes in, he'll break that deal. So it made no sense to him. I said they realized when Trump was serious about making that deal was when Israel just bombed the crap out of him. And 2 days later, what did the Iranians say? They said, U.S. is not involved. They were shocked themselves. And I'm not saying that this is the Iranian government. There's a lot of different fighting factions, elements in the Iranian government. Yeah, there's one supreme leader who owns the guns. But those other guys, like, you know what? We have an opportunity to talk here. Maybe we could do something. And again, my biggest thing was if Israel wants long-term peace for Israel, would have been kill as many of the leadership as possible for the IRGC, give an opportunity that we have right now with the ceasefire, and let the streets start doing their piece. If they're strong enough. I don't know if they're strong enough yet, to be honest, guys. I don't know if there's been enough killing of the IRGC to give them that opportunity. But hopefully we're doing something with the three-letter agencies that might have, set the stage to allow at least the Artesh to side with the people if they revolt.
Yeah, and there are some rumors circulating about that already, that CIA and Mossad are fomenting things on the ground. There are some videos starting to circulate of people getting out in the streets. But like you said, do they have the momentum they need to actually take down the IRGC? Because that's the biggest threat now that stands in their way. Hopefully they do.
They have to have weapons. You got to have the guns, buddy. You don't have the guns in the bullets, nobody cares. And the Artesh has to be strong enough to say, okay, I'm willing to side with the people, and the IRGC has to be weak enough for Artesh to do that. I don't know if they're there yet. If Mossad and the CIA are doing their job, hopefully that will set the stage to where Artesh would be strong enough to say, I'm going to support them. Again, just because Artesh supports them, there's a revolution, people topple the government. That doesn't mean that we're going to have a friendly government to the Iranians, because all our allies, like I mentioned, the issue, even with the Brits, they're all going to have their hands and they're trying to pull Iran towards them. Like even when Putin was asked on the issues of why didn't you get involved on behest of the Iranians, he's like, well, we have a lot of Jews that are living in Israel. There's a large number of Jews that left Russia under communism and settled in Israel. And if possibly, and I hope this doesn't happen, if the current Israeli government, I'm not talking about Israel as a nation, current Israeli government in charge, doesn't like maybe some of the possibilities after the war that they may have to deal with, and they start flirting with the Russians, that would be a disaster for us. So we got to keep that relationship as tight as possible. As I told you previously, Netanyahu has gone around Trump, but he couldn't do it this time. And if they all behave, the political leaders, I think the Mossad, the military leaders in Israel, the Israelis, the Iranians will work together with the CIA to set the stage for the Iranians to take a step, have a backbone to topple this government, which means that Ayatollah Khamenei will be gone within 6 months.
And there is.
We before the show started, we talked really briefly, and I said, let's wait till later. From your perspective, from American and the Trump perspective, and Netanyahu and what just occurred, what's your view on the relationship or position of Netanyahu and Trump and how this thing turned out with what just happened? Because we're being told it was a great
Well,
organized collaboration.
no, they collaborated together, but there's a strain in that relationship still too politically.
Yes.
I remember when Biden hadn't even won yet. Votes were counting. Netanyahu was first person calling, congratulating. It really didn't set relationship wise, personally, Trump and him together. And when Netanyahu tried to go around Trump this time, Trump got the whiff of it. He wasn't happy.
Yeah.
And the problem is Netanyahu, who's is facing a lot of internal issues. Look, this thing settles, okay, and there's a governmental change in Iran, let's say. Netanyahu still is facing some stuff. There's some legal challenges. The Qatar investigation on corruption
Mm-hmm.
from him and his folks in the government is in the hands of the Israelis that are opposition to him. That
Mm-hmm.
he has to deal with the issue of, okay, what are we going to do with this piece of terrain that has been basically destroyed, which is Gaza. The
Yeah.
whole issue of who was responsible and who was asleep at the switch with October 7th. I mean, we still have Israeli hostages, folks. How many
Yeah.
years?
Yeah.
I mean,
And I don't think we even have a correct number on how many hostages they still have, because I've seen different things reported all over the place. We were looking into this the other day related to a different story. And to your further point regarding Netanyahu, there's also he really does get it from both sides in a negative sense in Israel, because there's also a lot of people that accuse him of not finishing the job after the Hezbollah missile attacks out of Lebanon before, that they had him cornered, a lot of their leadership cornered, and then he backed down at the last minute, which is something he's done with prior engagements too. Is when they're on the ropes, that's when they want to ceasefire, want to make peace, and he doesn't finish the job. Now, I get it that some people say that's also because that's the only thing that saves his career politically, that otherwise it would look like he crossed the line, went too far, they were pleading for peace, and then he just said not to. But at some point, especially with enemies like this that will dedicate their life to your destruction, you really do have to go in and finish the job.
yeah, but that's going to be that can happen with all the Muslim nations that believe in the Hadiths, the Quran, and the
Yeah.
write-ups that are in all their like. I mean, Pakistan itself is a nuclear power, right?
Hmm.
Pakistan supported Osama bin Laden, harbored him, took
Yeah.
Hmm.
care of him. Pakistan supported the Taliban that killed us American soldiers. Some
Yeah.
good friends that I knew in bushels. Okay,
Yeah.
but how come we're not bombing the nuclear sites of the Pakistan government? Why is that guy different than this other guy? Well, this guy believes in this 12 concepts of Mahdi. Um, okay, look, Pakistan has been telling India, we're going to bomb you, destroy you for years, we're going to nuke you. Same thing with India. Two nuclear powers just went to war with each other and didn't drop nukes on each other.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to kind of be able to walk through that process. The other piece is Israel has, since the establishment, guys, has never been really truly independent. Israel has always been somebody there that was influenced because of the stage that they were at
Hmm.
before, initially by the Brits. The British, we were like, we have an ally, and that ally can again be that buffer for us for the Suez Canal on the eastern side. I mean, literally, the Brits asked the Israelis to conduct an attack against Egypt so they could use it as a ability for their forces and the French to come in and seize the Suez Canal. Was the American president was like, you know what, you need to pack your stuff and get back to to your little island country, Britain. Otherwise, I'm about to, release hell on all of you. And then, today even Israel today is not that independent because it doesn't have some of the capabilities the U.S. has, and U.S. has a veto. I mean, when the president of the United States can pick up and call Netanyahu and says, "No, you're going to turn your aircrafts back," that's significant. That's
Yeah.
significant sway over our country. So Israel has never been truly independent. The problem with Israel is I think its foreign and domestic policies are infused together, and they have a lot of influence from a religious perspective, and not so much from the Jewish religious perspective. Is the Christian Zionist who drives that narrative,
Mm.
who is putting millions and billions of dollars possibly into the type of thought processes that influence the congressional leaders that sometimes tend to just adhere to what that Christian Zionist is doing. I mean, I've told, as I told you before, friends of mine who are Christians here, who are Christian Zionists, I go, dude, listen to yourself. The Jews believe in their Messiah. The Messiah in the Torah is completely different than the Messiah that you have in your forehead.
Yeah.
And in your forehead, how insulting is it to go tell somebody of another religion, here, bless this red heifer, okay, your rabbi, so I can sacrifice them so that we can build a third temple so that my Messiah can come and tell you that I'm the Messiah. I mean, it's just insulting. And the reason kind of, the Jewish people and Jewish state deals with it is because, okay, your source of money, right? You come here and spend a lot of money
Yeah.
in the Holy Land, God bless you. At least I have something because majority of money is going to what? Defense. Is
Yeah.
going to defense. And we have to break that pattern. We have to break it to where you give them an opportunity for the Israelis to kind of reset, be a little bit more independent, and allow them to maybe have a different vision for the region and the Near East over the next 50 years.
And I think the Abraham Accords were kind of a first step in that direction to normalize relationships with as many Muslim nations as they could regionally, because trade and commerce, tends to bring nations closer together. Nobody wants to sever those ties once the gravy train starts. And it's probably the best thing that we could do is get back on track there and try to normalize relations with more countries.
No, I mean it's the right step to take. It's one of the steps. Um, I want our friends, if they're listening, the Israelis to really understand from a U.S. strategic perspective. If you take the emotions out of it, for us, Taiwan's much more important and more of a
Yeah.
threat,
Strategic.
Yeah.
more of a threat to our civilization.
Yeah.
Than what happens in Israel. And I think this is where a lot of the Israelis have a hard time kind of grasping it. And I'm like, guys, this is it. I mean, I use this example. I go, think about it. Israel still to this day, as a state, has not recognized the Armenian genocide, the Assyrian genocide, which my folks went through, or the Pontus Greek genocide. The
Mhm.
Nagorno Karabakh was basically a piece of property. Yeah, it did sit in Azerbaijan, but it was all Armenians. And
Yeah.
then the state of Israel, under the current Netanyahu administration, supported the Azadi government because they needed an ally in the north to kind of counter Iran. Well, in this process, Azerbaijan and Turkey, basically using Turkish drones, destroyed all Armenian army and basically took that entire community and basically threw it to the winds.
Yeah.
So, if you are a nation that can't even recognize a genocide because have to work with people who themselves are, in this case, a Muslim nation, or Azerbaijan, that is
Yeah.
against a Christian nation, Armenia, then, you really don't have a foreign policy in the region. And really don't set the moral standard for nations if that becomes the issue. And I think
Yeah.
that's a struggle that a lot of Israelis have had with whether or not a state structure, in this case, as is represented by one party under one guy's leadership. And the parliamentary system is one of the worst systems possible, to be honest. Initially, when Israel was established, it was established as a social state. It is a democratic state now, but it's gone through a lot of ups and downs as it's tried to survive. And Netanyahu had made the comment one time, well, the only place that the Jews are safe is in Israel. No, believe it or not, if you look at the numbers, more Jews have died in the state of Israel since the Holocaust and the establishment than have been killed globally.
Hmm.
So why isn't that the Jewish community globally is not being killed, where you're getting hit here? Well, that's because we're in one area, in one state. I said, yeah, but even with the attacks in the Mumbai hotel, everywhere else that has taken place with the Delhi attacks,
Mhm.
they're still on the number count. More people have died today in Israel, and if you want to solve that problem, the best way to solve it is you have to have a different approach on foreign policy than you have today.
So, if you could explain to when you said, where I'm from, could you quick, share with Mike and the folks when you said, where I'm from with respect to Iran and Syrians and so forth. And
Well, I'm an Assyrian Christian. I was born in Iran, as an Assyrian Christian, and when the revolution took place, we knew that, you're you have no future as a Christian.
Yeah,
So
your days are numbered.
yeah, I would have probably been killed in the Iran-Iraq War, and 76% of the Syrians who fought on the Iranian side and the Syrian Christians who fought on the Iraqi side because they were in their military services, 76% were, with holes in the back of their heads or back.
uh,
So that means their own armies killed them.
yeah,
Yeah.
So, and guess what? As soon as the hostilities, the bad guys can, attack the Jews in Israel or the Americans in the United States, they go bomb a church somewhere, either in Syria, in Iraq, or other places, and kill as
Yes.
many Christians as possible.
Yeah. You're right, and unfortunately, Israel's largely been silent on many of these genocides throughout the years. Um, it is it's terrible. The situation is what it is right now within Iran, and I do want to bring up one other item before I forget. What are your thoughts on Prince Pahlavi? I know he's met with a lot of European leaders. He's trying to get in contact with Trump. He's promised that if he's returned to power, that he already has a government and that it'll be a democracy this time, not a kingdom. What are your thoughts there?
Uh, in the past, I hate to say, United States will always bring out the Iranian guys every time it wants to put pressure on Iran. Say, hey, here's our guy, our spokesperson, something that would hit the airways. I don't know what he's doing, to be honest, but uh, I have a feeling that people that are in Iran are going to take to the streets, who are going to topple the government. Um, they're going to have their say as to who they want and what type of leadership they want. We don't want to do a full government change. We did that in Iraq. It's absolutely a disaster.
Yeah.
We changed out the entire regime. How many American soldiers we lost,
hmm
and what's the outcome of it today? We're making deals with the same terrorists who killed American forces in Syria, and then
Yeah.
we wrote an Islamic constitution for the Iraqi government, which even under Saddam it wasn't an Islamic constitution. And
Yeah.
today, if you are anyone at any given time in the past or the future that may work with Israel, you is a death penalty. And the mosques that were in Iraq are literally nightclubs that are used to traffic women and drugs. That's
Yeah.
what you go see them every Saturday. That's what they have become, and are owned by few individuals. The whole place has become a disaster. The Christians of the Middle East, certain Christians in Iraq, were 2.3 million. There's 100,000 maybe left.
wow.
You
Wow.
know, and we're not gonna even say, okay, you could have a safe haven for yourself. God forbid we give a safe haven for 100,000 Christian Assyrians. But we'll get a red heifer and we'll sacrifice it so that Jesus can come tell the Jews that I'm the Messiah. I mean, some of the stupid things that Christians in America do that boggles my mind. But it is what it is. So be it.
Yeah.
And look, I think long term, there's been always historical relationship between Iranians and the Jewish people, and I think whoever is going to sit in that seat in Iranian leadership in the future has to understand that governmental leadership, and whether or not Pahlavi is able to do that or not, I don't know.
One of the problems that you mentioned, I was talking to a friend earlier this week that Americans don't understand is that you said it, I don't know, about 20 minutes ago, that, President Trump's in now, right? And so their foreign policy is driven in a short term. I mean, we go back between a Republican or a Democrat, and I could imagine being in another country trying to negotiate a future foreign policy with the United States of America, going from an Obama or a Biden to a Donald Trump. It's like you just sit back and say, okay, well, we're going to get some leftist freak in here, and we're going to be able to go back, or let's buy some more time. That's why people don't understand how important it is to move quickly in certain things that you may or may not agree with. And
Look,
like
I
you're,
look at it this way, Terry, and after this, I do have to drop off.
yep,
Um, Look, no decision is right or wrong decision. I've always said that. It's just a decision.
Yeah.
But those decisions have consequences. So you made a decision, Israel, to go to war with Iran. Iran, you made a decision to set up proxies, and Trump came in a decision here. I got rid of all your
Mhm.
nuclear facilities that you would be using to, make a nuclear bomb. And now you guys gonna have to, whether you like it or not, find a new way to get to peace. I know you don't
Right.
like it, but that's the way it's gonna be. So uh, let's see what the consequences of those decisions are. And
Yeah.
nobody knows right now what the consequences would be. All I know is today Israel is strong. It can destroy any of its enemies in the Gulf states, its military capabilities, its Mossad. But of course, on the other hand, you have October 7th, Israeli
Yep.
citizens, children, women, kids being killed in their own
Mhm.
beds,
Babies.
and babies. And then you got ballistic missiles, old generation, coming through your to your
Mhm.
dome capabilities and falling on the country. If in the future, 100 years from now, any crazy nation out there says, "I mean, I'm going to drop a nuke on Israel," there's nothing that exists today that can stop it.
Mhm.
Yep.
And look, 75 countries right now can become a nuclear power within a week.
Mhm.
75
Yep.
countries. And my recommendation would be to the Japanese. I said, become a nuclear power.
Mhm.
You have you have all the centrifuges, you got the capability. Just turn around and say, okay, I'm giving up my civilian, program here.
Mhm.
I'm gonna have a nuke because I'm worried about China. Germany, that literally is the reason why we have the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Germany itself can become a nuclear power in a week. Okay, nobody's gonna go bomb them. Nobody's gonna
Mhm.
destroy them for doing that. So you have 75 countries that can do it. Hopefully, people do not tear up the NPA because they go,
Non-proliferation
well,
agreement.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because they go, well, maybe one of the consequences is because Trump attacked this country who was a signatorial, which is all BS anyway, legally, but it's still legal, right? That
Yeah.
and any other country can use that as an excuse. Countries can use whatever they want as an excuse to do what they want. But I know one thing is I don't think Israel is a nice, secure place now, given the fact that ballistic missiles can reach it and kill its citizens, and
Mhm.
non-conventional asymmetric operations can kill their citizens.
Mhm.
And there has to be a complete new paradigm change in their approach for the region
Mhm.
in order for them to be able to really be not just the lead, but as you're the lead, have a vision to how you bring peace to the region in the long term. And whether or not that could be achieved, I don't know. We just need to have a functional peace for now.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate you being on the show, let alone for an hour. You told me you weren't going to make an hour, and you did. So and I told you when it's ready to go, it's ready to go. So please drop off and get some rest. And appreciate everything, all the insights and information that you shared with us that many people don't even hear or don't even know what's going on with respect to Iran and America and Israel. So really appreciate it.
I don't know. I hope it helps. If it helps, God
Yes, it
bless.
did.
If it doesn't,
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
God bless.
so. I think you supplied a lot of really good information that people aren't getting here. It's a much more realistic perspective than we're getting from the cheerleaders on either side, and it makes people think. And there's a lot more going on here than just what people see at the surface. So hopefully you feel better here soon. Because I would like to get you back on, maybe with Annie, and have you guys kind of debate certain things, because you do have you have different outlooks on certain aspects of it, and you're right in line with each other on others. So I think that'd make for a really interesting conversation at some point in the future.
Okay, anytime, guys. We'll do. Give me a couple of weeks to recover.
All right, buddy.
Well, I hope you
All
feel
right.
better soon, and thanks again for joining us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank
guys.
you.
God bless.
Thanks,
God
buddy.
bless.
Yeah, he's awesome. I like him.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He's got good perspective and seems like fair and balanced, at least from my understanding of what I know about
Yeah,
him.
it's well, it's realistic. He brought up a lot of points that you're not seeing discussed at all on mainstream media, conservative media, or anywhere else. Because this is a multifaceted. No matter what happens, there's going to be consequences down the line. Some of them we're not going to foresee. But to look at it more from that perspective instead of what's immediately gratifying or what the cheerleaders want, I mean, it brings it puts a fresh spin on things that I really appreciate.
Yeah. So I don't. We have a couple things as we close out here. We started about 7 minutes late, but we have a few minutes here. Did you have any little commercials? And then I want to talk about our guest that's going to be on Thursday. So I don't know if you want to do a commercial, little plug for the sponsor.
We can do that. Yeah, the sponsor we got, and I won't run the commercial here, but do want you guys to go to jace.com or jacemedical.com. Pick yourself up a Jace case. So I can grab mine right here. This isn't a first aid kit. It's not a Band-Aid box. What this is a powerful prescription medication that you'll have before an emergency. It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And this is to help treat a wide variety of illnesses or injuries, and give your family the tool, especially in a time of like a disaster. When help's not coming, that's when something like this is really important. With everything going on in the world today, including potentially getting our medication cut off by China because we still haven't built the facilities here we need to make our own pharmaceuticals again, or whether it is, one of the dangers right now with what's going on in the Middle East is the possibility of cyber attacks bringing down our electric grid, or other cells that are already embedded here within our country. We know Hezbollah had people in here. We know that somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 military-aged men from Iran made it over the border during the Biden years. So again, this is something simple, inexpensive, that you can have on hand to protect you and your family during an emergency. And if you use code BEL1776 on checkout, you'll get an additional discount on top of that. Again, that's jacemedical.com or jace.com and use code BEL1776. Again, trust me, it's better to have this and not need it than need it and not have it. If there is an emergency in our near future, you'll be glad you had it.
Yeah, with a slight upgrade in case the power goes out, there's a little bottle of Cialis that can be thrown in that pack. It's a joke. It's terrible.
Yeah.
So let's see. Next, so Thursday we have a really interesting guest, Dr. Jerome Corsi, 6-time New York Times bestseller. So for some of you guys who probably remember Obama Nation. Remember Obama Nation?
Yeah.
What was that? John Kerry, the U-boat. What was that?
The Swift votes. Yeah.
Swift votes. He's got a bunch of books, but I remember, Obama Nation. I remember the Swift boat.
I'm gonna pull up his. You still there?
Yeah, we're still here.
Okay. No, sorry, you cut out for a second.
Sorry, I probably moving around. And then we want to show that flyer I sent you on Slack. I don't know if you got that about our mega boat parade.
Oh, let me grab that right now and I'll get that up.
So on Saturday, up at the Chain of Lakes, up in Antioch, Captain Quarters, my brother's band is going to be playing there. It's called Remedy. My brother and my sister-in-law's band, they play up in Chain of Lakes once a year. And my new best buddy, Mike or Mickey Scornavacchio, he's got the Chain of Lakes Patriot Club there that they have boats and MAGA boats and MAGA flags. And then we got my buddy Shane from the Illinois MAGA Illinois MAGA official MAGA group that's going to be, they have all the trucks with the flags. So we're going to meet up there at 5:00 as Mike's looking to pull up this flyer here.
There you go.
You get to meet with, there we go. So please check out my Facebook. For those of you that are local, check out Facebook. You can see on Twitter and you'll get more information on this, but we're going to have a MAGA meetup by land and by water, right? So we're going to meet at this marina, Captain's Quarters, and then my brother's band. We're going to meet at 5:00, and then my brother's band plays at 6, and they're really good. Not just because it's my brother and sister-in-law, they're really good. I wouldn't say if they weren't good, I wouldn't say, I swear to God, I would say they suck.
Then you just you would say it's some guy I don't know. It's definitely not my brother.
Yeah. So please check it out if you live around the north. Actually, we're driving. It's like it's an hour and 20 minutes for me. I'm gonna get a room up there, and then what else? We're gonna celebrate. It was a good week this week for us locally, knowing what's going on with order protections and no contact order, no stalking. Or this is an inside joke for people from Illinois. We threw a Moab on the presumptive governor of Illinois. So we'll be talking about that next week. So Mickey is going to fill in for me. Mike Scornavacchio from Lake County, Antioch. He's going to stand in for me with Mike on Thursday. And Mickey wrote a number of books himself. So I don't even think he knows yet that he's going to be on the phone with the 6-time New York Times bestseller, Dr. Jerome Court. So I know, Mike, I know you're going to enjoy it. And the guy's great.
Yeah, I've got a couple of his books. I've got Obama Nation and I've got Atomic Iran. And I'm going to look into his most recent one. I'll probably pick it up tomorrow. North American Union Conspiracy Theories.
Oh, we're going to talk about that in the future. He wants to talk about Iran on Thursday, just so you know.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to go find. I've got that book, so I'm just going to go find it and dust it off.
So, hey, Mickey, so if you're watching, you got to bring some books Saturday, and you got to autograph those books, right, buddy? And then at the Lake County Fair, we're going to be there. You and I are going to be there as well. The Republican booth, right? And you're going to be autographing those books. Got that, Mickey?
That's right.
So thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to be traveling to Phoenix for a couple days, and Mike's going to hold the fort down on Thursday.
Oh, yeah. And to the audience, thank you for joining us tonight. Please like, share, and subscribe. Help us to grow so we can bring more people the news the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear. And I'll be back on Thursday with even more.